Hello, and thank you for joining us for a special World Wildlife Day edition of Aquarium at Home. And this handsome gentleman here is an eastern box turtle, and we'll talk about how I know that's a gentleman momentarily. But before I do that, let's introduce the human star of this Facebook Live, and really just every day. Julia Gregory, you are one of our educators here at the Aquarium, correct?
That is absolutely correct. I don't think of myself as the star of this show. I'm the roadie, and he's the star.
Fair enough. All right, so World Wildlife Day is today, and in just a few days, as the description to this live hinted at, we will be starting a new program that's going to be running for the next 7 months, and likely through the end of the year, though in a maybe not nearly as structured a fashion, but at least through September, the Global Passport Program. And every month we'll be focusing on a different continent and introducing you to some of the animals that live on that continent, because believe it or not, all 7 continents are represented in the living collection here at the Aquarium. And we thought it fitting for the first month to start close to home here in North America, and the eastern box turtle is in fact the state reptile of Tennessee and North Carolina. But Julia, what makes this turtle special other than its notoriety as the state reptile?
Well, box turtles, they're sort of odd bunches because when you look at the turtle, he looks like a tortoise. He has a high domed shell, he has stumpy feet, no webs, and strong claws, and all of those things make him a good walker. So this turtle was made for walking, and walking is just what he'll do. And he's going to walk away from me now.
Say off the mat there.
Absolutely. And yet he's not classified as a tortoise. He is classified among the water turtles, and smarter scientists than I figured that out. But here in Tennessee, because they're our official state reptile, they are certainly very important to us. Now, I don't want to do a brain dump. I'm hoping we have some folks out there who will send in questions.
Yes, by all means, type those down in the comments.
Yes, please. And that way I'll be talking about what you want to hear about. It is probably the box turtle's method of defense that gave his name, and that makes him particularly endeared, at least to the students that I've met in my virtual outreach programs lately. So I can show you his secret weapon for defense if you'd like to see it.
Oh, I know I would.
Well, I'm having second thoughts here. It's really not that exciting. Are you sure you want to see it?
I think yeah, for sure.
I don't know. It's really pretty dull, Casey. Are you positive?
Well, at this point now, you're starting to lose me on it.
All right. I'll show it to you, but I told you so. The box turtle's secret super defense mechanism is this line right here. See that line across his bottom shell?
I do.
If you love science words, that bottom shell is called a plastron. This line is a hinge. Oh. And it allows this bottom shell to move so that when he pulls in his legs and his head and his tail, he can then use some muscles to pull the front of his shell up like this and the back of his shell up like this, and all of a sudden he's shut up safe and tight inside his shell, just as if he were shut up safe and tight inside of a
box.
That's it. So that's probably how they got their name. And they're not the only turtle with a hinged shell. Some turtles' shells are hinged on the top. But he certainly is a North American star for being able to do that. I told you he was a walking turtle.
Well, and here in Chattanooga, those of you who are joining us from parts unknown or from farther afield than Tennessee may not be experiencing the warm weather that we are and the onset of spring. It does actually start here in the south a little bit earlier than the official start date later in the month. And I was just noticing some blooms on the way to work, as a matter of fact. But here in the spring, these animals, the eastern box turtle is a fairly common sight because they migrate, and that tends to take them across roads. So can you talk a little bit, Julia, about what we should do if we happen to see a turtle and want to be good turtle friends and help that turtle on its way in a safe way?
I would love to do that because a lot of people want to help but don't really know how. So box turtles have very distinct territories. They know where everything is that they need in their territory. They know where the water puddles are for soaking. They know where the logs are to dig for earthworms and snails and slugs. They know where the strawberries are ripe in the summer and where to find persimmons under the trees in the late summer and fall. And they go from place to place in their territories very deliberately to get what they need. And then we humans come in and build roads across their territories. And now they have to cross those roads to meet their needs. Obviously, roads aren't a safe place for anybody to be, even if they're as fast as this turtle. I think he could cross Lee Highway in no time flat. But sometimes they'll stop, they'll feel a car coming, and they'll stop to have a look. And if a driver isn't really careful, they might be hit. So those of us who love turtles and want to help them might stop. If it's safe, please don't risk your life if it's not safe. Might stop to move the turtle. Now let's say this turtle, whose name is Boxer, by the way, let's say he's crossing the road going this direction. And I stop the car and get out and I pick him up and I say, "You silly turtle, come over here and be safe." And I drive away feeling all warm and fuzzy because I've helped a turtle today. And Boxer is standing on the side of the road over here, looking across the road where he wants to go, stamping his little foot and saying, "Darn those meddlesome humans. Now I have the whole thing to cross all over again." And off he will go again in the same direction because he wasn't lost, he was going somewhere.
And if anyone has ever played the classic arcade game Frogger, it's a little bit like Frogger. You always want to go to the top of the screen, and that's what they want to do. They want to go in that same direction.
They want to go where they were going, and you can tell which way that was by seeing which way they're pointing. Now, may I circle back to his shell?
You may, but may I first intrude with a question from a viewer?
No intrusion. Most welcome.
Now, Tina Mosley, we do have a couple questions. I'll try and get to those as soon as I can. But Tina Mosley was first off the shot there, and she is asking on behalf of 5-year-old Violet, how do you tell if it's a boy or a girl? Now, we hinted at that, but that's a great question.
You look deep into their eyes. And I would call that eye orange, maybe reddish orange.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes an adult turtle a male. All the juveniles have brown eyes. But since we need to see what brown eyes look like on turtles, let me put Boxer back in his travel carrier.
Because we have 2 guests here today.
And take out our female turtle, whose name is Claudia, and we'll have a look at the color of her eyes. What do you think? There's a little orange tint to them.
But not nearly as pronounced.
On the whole, they're brown.
That is a very distinct difference.
I'm going to put her down. I'm hoping she's not going to give me quite as much exercise as Boxer did. Although my hope may have been in vain. So, were there any other questions? Let's answer those first.
Sure. So Yang would like to know, why do they have nails?
Oh, well, you can see how helpful those nails are in gripping this mat to move the turtle forward as she walks. And that's so out on the ground in nature, too. But in addition to that, these turtles have babies by laying eggs. And they have to have a safe place to put their eggs, and a hole in the ground is just the ticket. So they have to be able to dig that hole. And they also dig for food. They don't tunnel for food. But if they find a good rotten log with lots of little invertebrates in it, slugs, snails, maybe the nymphs of some animals, beetle grubs, they will take those claws and pull a rotten log apart or dig under it and get those delicious protein offerings.
All right. Well, that's a great reason to have nails. It's certainly a better reason than we don't really have any reason to have nails anymore, do we?
Well, they protect our fingertips from being crushed.
Well, that's true.
And that's important when you're an animal that does a lot of little things with your fingers. Otters find them helpful. Monkeys find them helpful. Don't look at my pinky like that, please. Mercy goodness. She's had a long day too, so I don't want her to get designs on my digits.
Now, you say that she's had a busy day. We should probably talk about the job that Claudia and Boxer have. They are not just here to be wonderful animals, but also to serve an important role as ambassadors.
That's absolutely right. These animals are not pets. They are colleagues. They are my co-workers. And together we're able to teach people about the natural world, which is absolutely our mission here at the aquarium. To connect people with nature, and what better face than that to connect people with nature. And we want to do that so that people can make informed decisions about how to treat wildlife and how to take care of water. And Claudia certainly does that. She's been busy at it today, teaching some school children about animals' life cycles and teaching some other children about animals' defense mechanisms. She trotted out that super secret line across her plastron. And she was able to show them how her shell works. So what we see on the outside of a turtle shell is keratin. It's the same stuff as our fingernails are made of. And it provides protection for what's underneath, which we'll get to in just a second. And also a place for pigments to rest to make a pattern that is hopefully helpful to the turtle's survival. What's underneath there is bone. Here is the shell of a former turtle, and you see it's made of bone. But the part that I think is most fascinating, and I loved my first look at the inside of a turtle shell, is the fact that that bone comes from the turtle's spine and ribs. Turtles' ribs over eons have flattened out and fused together. We have a bird cage shape to protect our guts, but the turtles have grown a helmet to protect theirs. So this wonderful hard shell, now it does present some difficulties. The shoulder girdle is here and the hip girdle here, and there's almost no room for flexibility of those mechanisms. So all of the flexibility has to be in those legs that sort of stick out to the side, and that's why. Because there's no room for movement to produce a gait inside the shell.
And people sometimes ask, we've had to address this before because people think that turtles are more like hermit crabs, that they just slip out of that shell and go find a new one, or that they're somehow able to leave the shell. That's not the case. It'd be like trying to leave your spine behind.
That's exactly right. If you can take out your spine and your rib cage, then that would work. But I'll bet nobody watching can do that. I think I can probably trace that back, because you see my hair color. I'm a very old person. And there is a very old cartoon that I saw as a child in which a turtle pulled his shell off over his head and went and took a shower and came back with a towel across his arm. That's not how it happens. The shell is a part of their skeleton. The other thing that this shell is wonderful for protection But in addition to limiting range of motion and flexibility, it also does not let the body expand for any reason. So once the turtle has reached adult size, the turtle can't get fat inside the shell. It has to get fat in other places. And so most turtles out in nature aren't fat anyway because they have to work so hard to get their food. But the females do have the difficulty of having to have a place to carry eggs. And as a result of that restricted room, box turtles cannot lay many eggs at a time. They only produce 3 to 10 eggs per season that they breed. And sometimes they only breed every other year. So you can see that their reproductive recovery rate, their reproductive growth rate is not very fast. And that's another reason we have to take especially good care of box turtles. They don't produce hundreds and hundreds of eggs, just a few every now and then.
Are they like some species of turtles that are late to become sexually mature?
You know, I don't know when they become sexually mature.
All right. We do have additional questions. One of them came from Nicole Bracken, who would like to know, what degree do you need to work there? I love these lives. And the answer, Nicole, is going to be that it kind of depends on what you want to do, I think.
Exactly. We have so many different kinds of people doing so many different jobs here. You would think that it was all about taking care of animals and talking about animals and helping people learn about animals, and that's a big part of it. But those of us who work here really, really like our marketing department because they get people to come and listen to us. Wouldn't I feel foolish sitting here doing this by myself? There's also the finance department who takes such good care of the aquarium's finances that I get a paycheck on a regular basis, and it has never been late. We have a housekeeping crew who keep this place spotless. People come here and they say, how long have you been open? And we say, oh, we're pushing on 28 years. And they look around and they say, well, this doesn't look like a 28-year-old building. And our maintenance department has a lot to do with that. They're the operators who take care of water temperature and quality and filtration that keep our animals safe. As a matter of fact, in the time I've worked here, which has been a very long time, we've had several people retire from the nuclear energy industry and come here to be operators to take care of the water that the animals live in. And I know I'm forgetting somebody. Who am I forgetting, Casey? Help me.
Gosh, I can't even think. I mean, marketing, the people who are on our membership team who help to take care of members and provide for cool opportunities for them.
Absolutely. It's a big team.
Visitor services, the people who make sure that when you come here, you're greeted well, they answer your questions. And
let you know where the bathroom is.
An aquarium is kind of like a city. And just like a city can't depend on just law enforcement or just firefighters or just a mayor, everyone's interdependent. We are all pretty much a team and a family. And I came in with a degree in journalism and German, of all things, and here I am doing this. So it's kind of, you get your foot in the door and find your way in a way that makes sense to you.
And in case the person who asked the question is a young person, let me give some unsolicited advice. Old people like to do that, which is, your degree will matter, and you should have one. But equally important, maybe just a little more important, is your experience. Well, how do I get a job in my field without a degree? And you can volunteer. I would urge you to seek out volunteer jobs, the kind that you think you would like to do. It's a great way not only to get the experience for a resume, but also to find out if you really, really like that kind of work or if you've been fooling yourself. Have we answered questions, or can I circle back again?
I think we have, but there is one more. You asked her questions and people are coming through. Tina, who asked on behalf of the 5-year-old, I think I've got the same person. Anyway, Tina Mosley would like to know on behalf of Juliet, how long can eastern box turtles live?
Oh.
And if we can get one out again, that way I can show.
Yes, what a great question.
Bring Claudia back out.
Yes, she's going to start working me again. Eastern box turtles have been documented to live as long as 150 years.
Wow.
And the way that happened was in New England, there used to be a really awful tradition that when a couple got married on their honeymoon, they would go out in the woods and find a box turtle. There were more of them then. And on the box turtle shell, they would carve their initials and the date of their marriage. And a box turtle was found with a date 150 years prior carved in its shell.
Wow.
Now, that's amazingly long. I think you could probably, in professional human care, you would expect a box turtle with good genetics to live for 75 to 100 years. No, not my fingers, honey.
All right. Well, I hope that answers your question. Yang has followed up with a second question, which is, do turtles need to be in water at any point, or can they stay out of water indefinitely?
It depends, but don't you hate it when people say it depends? But it does upon what kind of turtle. This turtle does not want to stay in water. It would not be healthy for this turtle to stay in water. Now, she does want to soak every now and then. Everybody likes to soak in some water. She needs a good drink from time to time. But otherwise, she really doesn't have any use for water. Turtles like snapping turtles and chicken turtles and sliders and cooters, they need water for protection. They don't have that special shell on the bottom to close up. So when they pull their parts in, their soft parts are still visible and accessible from outside their shells. And a predator could pick at them and pull out a leg and eat it, and pull out a head and eat that. And so in order not to be in that situation, to protect themselves, those kinds of turtles stay very near water and use the water for protection. They fall in or run in and swim to the bottom and hide. And so the water's their protection. Sea turtles, for example, aren't made to walk. They don't have legs anymore. They have flippers. And so they have to stay in the water or they're stuck. You've seen the videos of those females going up on the beach to dig holes and lay their eggs. And they're only barely mobile. They're a turtle out of water, and they show it. So it does depend upon the kind of the turtle. Tortoises are very much like this box turtle and have very little use for water except for an occasional soak to keep their skins healthy and a good drink of water from time to time. Although many tortoises that live in the desert get all their water from their food and don't get to soak but maybe once a year.
Wow. And now those of you who have been to the aquarium know this, but if you've never been, we are actually home to the largest collection of freshwater turtles in North America. And you can see all of the different kinds that Julia has mentioned, in addition to some others that she didn't mention. And we will be probably touching on some of those other species like Australian long-necked turtles when we get around in Global Passports to our focus on Australia, because they are a super cool animal that is exceptionally different from our eastern box turtle friend here, along with the Fly River turtle, who is another one with, looks almost like a land-based sea turtle, or an inland sea turtle, I guess I should say. So lots and lots and lots of really cool turtles here at the aquarium for you to come and see whenever you are able to come and visit us. Nicole Bracken has a question, which is, if their shell gets broken, will these turtles pass away?
It depends. You're tired of my saying that, aren't you? It depends upon the severity of the break and where it is. Lawnmowers and livestock are hard on box turtles, and they routinely come into rehabilitation centers with their shells broken, cracked, sometimes even across the spine. But if it's not too deep into the shell, they will recover. that its bone, its living bone, and just like our bones will grow back together, so will the turtle's bones. There's not a lot you can do for a turtle with a broken shell. You can't put a cast on it very easily. Sometimes rehabilitators will use epoxy to stabilize it so that it can grow back together in roughly the correct shape, and make sure that the turtle has plenty of antibiotics so that they don't develop infections from that breach of their outer covering.
Okay. Emily Hood is asking on behalf of 8-year-old Jasper, is it true that box turtles can go all the way in their shells? Now, we touched on that earlier, but if you're tuning in later in the stream, this is maybe the fact of the stream.
Absolutely they can, because underneath they have this hinge that goes all the way across the bottom shell, which is called a plastron. So, and actually Claudia's doing that a little bit now. She's flexing this front part of her shell. If she were frightened, which I'm sorry, I'm not going to do just for you because she's my coworker and I'm not going to frighten her. But she could pull in all of her limbs and her tail and her head and then move the front of the shell up like this and the back of the shell up like this, and she'd be shut tightly inside that shell. Not all turtles can do that. The box turtle's special.
Now, Yang, who has asked several questions so far, is back again and would like to know, would they live longer out in the wild than in human care?
No, they would not. On average, I'm sure there would be exceptions. That's what's wonderful about science and the world. There are always exceptions, but in general, with all those predators and hazards out there and being able to find food not a sure thing, a turtle out in nature does not stand nearly the chance of a long life as a box turtle who's being taken care of by professionals, which leads me to remind you that it is against the law in at least Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama to take any animal with a backbone, any vertebrate, out of nature and try to make it a pet unless you have special permits. So please don't get any bright ideas about picking up the next box turtle you find and bringing it home to keep. It's against the law, and it's really not good for the turtle. These turtles look like they'd be easy to keep because here they sit in a box on newspaper, but their care is much, much more complicated than that. Special diets, including supplements, being kept at the correct temperature. And we have a vet who comes to see our animals 3 days a week and is on call 24/7. And if the least little thing goes wrong with these animals, they have veterinary attention immediately.
Keith Sanford, who is definitely not the president and CEO of the Tennessee Aquarium, has mentioned that they just 3D printed a new shell for a turtle that was burned. So that's news to me, and that's super cool.
Fabulous. Thank you for sharing that with us, Keith.
Sonia Keener is watching with Jason Luke from Chatsworth, Georgia. Thanks for joining us here on the stream. Thanks to all of you who have joined on the stream and who have been asking such great questions. Kathy Kelly, thanks you, Julia, for sharing your knowledge with us, and I will second that.
Absolutely, my pleasure. If you're going to live to be this old, you might as well be good for something.
Now, Nicole Bracken, again, repeat questioner, has asked, were Claudia and Boxer born in captivity?
I honestly do not know where they came from. They have been here longer than I have.
But there have been, we should say that the inroads for animals to find their way to the aquarium are numerous. And in some cases, they have been rescued. We've got some animals that we use as animal ambassadors for their wild counterparts who have come to us because they would not be able to survive were they to be released back into the wild for whatever reason, including our 2 sea turtles, Oscar and Stewie. Both of them came to us through rescue. So animals who otherwise might not stand much of a chance can live, as Julia said, a longer, happier life with us, and at the same time also do the excellent job of inspiring you to love and care for and want to protect their cousins out in the wild.
All right, little girl. She is about to wear me out.
Well, we've reached the end of the questions from the chat. So
quick, let me circle back. we were talking about turtles laying eggs, and I have some old eggshells here. Now, I want to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think these are turtle eggs because they're so long. Turtles tend to lay very round eggs. But in general, reptile eggs are leathery when they're laid. They're not brittle. They don't have brittle shells like bird eggs do. So this is a dried reptile egg, and you can see how very flexible it is. And that's because when it was fresh and had a baby whatever in it, I really think these are some kind of lizard egg. They were moist, flexible, and leathery is really the only word I can think of to describe them. Now I'm going to put those away and show you. I wanted recently to be able to show some young people what the size of a baby box turtle would be when it hatched out of its egg. And I found a measurement, but you know, for some people a measurement doesn't mean anything. You need to see a thing. And so I walked around my house and I found this, which is a bottle cap. And I want it in comparison to an adult. That is the size, 1.25 inches across. That is the size a baby box turtle is when it hatches out of its egg.
Wow. And
they're actually kind of folded up in that egg. When they come out, the shell is soft, and so the shell is in this shape. And as they stretch and spend some time, that shell flattens out to be this size. So they have to fold up to fit in that egg. Well, not to fit in the egg. They grew into the egg, and the shell was folded up before they were finished.
Wow. Nicole Bracken is commenting on my reference to Oscar and Stewie earlier. She says, I remember seeing Oscar. Wasn't he in a boating accident? Yes, he was. He was recovered off the coast of Florida back in, I can't remember if it was 2003 or 2005. I know he made his way to us, I believe in 2005. My dates could be wrong there, but he definitely was the victim of a boating accident, which unfortunately is how a lot of sea turtles, it is one of the leading causes of deaths and injuries to sea turtles, particularly down in Florida. So that is how he came to us, and he has lived a wonderful life, I think, an inspiring life to those who have seen him, because despite suffering some pretty grievous injuries, he has continued to thrive here at the aquarium and probably inspire a lot of people with his tenacity and his gumption, we'll say. So, Julia, as we are out of questions from the chat, and as we've probably been going on for a pretty long time, and all Claudia and Boxer look a little bit restless, maybe this is a good place for us to wrap up this first of our Global Passport-themed Facebook Lives here on World Wildlife Day. Thank you to those of you who have joined us. Hopefully you've learned something about the state reptile of North Carolina and Tennessee, the eastern box turtle, and enjoyed the expertise, as I always do, of Julia Gregory, who is just a star. Thank you so much for lending us your knowledge, Julia.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for to the aquarium for providing a job in which I can Google anything I want to about animals on company time.
All right. Well, we will wrap up with probably a slow approach of Claudia here. Thank you for joining us. Tune in next time for more Global Passports-themed Facebook Lives. Who knows where we'll end up next, but surely by the end of the year, we'll have made our way all the way around the planet. Thanks for joining us.